Okay, folks, we appear to be live. It is the second session of MixMaster 2020. My name is Nick Carswell. We should see everyone. We have a panel here today. We are talking about connecting with audiences in COVID times, which is my personal shorthand way. I think I've seen other people refer to it. COVID times, that's what we're in. So this is, I'm Nick Carswell, I'm with Silly Goose Records. This is a partnership with KKFI, Crossroads Music Festival. And we actually have Bill Sundahl on here. I'm going to unmute all of you guys right now. We have some people in our Zoom webinar, and then we're streaming from various Facebook pages. But Bill, while you're here, will you tell us what's happening on Saturday for the Crossroads Music Festival?
I will be happy to. Thank you, Nick. Crossroads Music Fest is going to be a virtual event this year. So we're going to live broadcast performances from all over the country. Most will be in KC, but Julia Othmer, who has joined us on this panel, will be streaming from California. And so it'll be live broadcast on KKFI 90.1 FM, or you can stream the audio at our website, kkfi.org. And it'll also be streamed, the live stream video will also be on cmfkc.com, KKFI's website, several different Facebook pages of our sponsors and some of the artists. And so very excited. It's a new and weird way to do a music festival. This is the 16th year, and I think it's going to be great. We've been doing, sound tests and video tests, and it's all shaping up really nicely. So 4 p.m. this Saturday until 10 p.m. this Saturday is going to be live broadcast and live stream. It is a fundraiser for KKFI, Kansas City's community radio station. So if you would have bought a ticket to Crossroads Music Fest, maybe consider throwing a couple bucks into the tip jar at kkfi.org/donate. And that's kind of the gist of it. And so MixMaster is something that Nick has been doing for 7 years, and maybe 4 years ago we started working together, and it's always been the day of the music festival. So that, now that time doesn't matter and it doesn't really even, no one knows what day of the week it is, we decided to do these Wednesdays at 4 for the first 3 in September. And so, yeah. Thank you, Nick, for putting these together, for not just these panels, but for your years of work to educate musicians and, share knowledge and connect people. It's no small feat, and thank you for doing it.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, and so to recap on this Saturday, did you mention all of the acts, or did I tune out?
Oh, I did not, but I will be happy to do that.
Please.
I thought that I had, I do have them written down right here. I should have them in my head. So we're going to start off at 4 with Soul Servers live from KONN 100.1, 1KC Radio. Esge Caracas and John Livingston will be live from 1900 building at 4:45. 5:30 is Reptil live from Massive Sound Studio. 6:15, Laura Noble will be live from Record Bar. 7 p.m., Julia Othmer will be live from Sherman Oaks. And 7:45, We the People, which is Eddie Moore's new band, will be live from Tribe Studios. 8:30, The Royal Chief will be live from the Emerald Dreams Lab. And 9:15, Calvin Arsenio will be live from Record Bar as well. So it's a pretty sweet lineup. We're really excited to, to showcase these artists and hopefully get some more eyes and ears on them. And that's really the point of Crossroads Music Fest is, you don't have to go see a whole bunch of music to find out who's good. Just come here once a year and get a sampling of a ton of different things. And yeah.
And now the come here once a year is just, turn on your computer or your phone or
right. Yeah.
Let's listen on something with good sound, hopefully, because these are all those. So we're talking about live streams today. So I think I'm not trying to do a fancy segue or anything here, but it's going to happen this Saturday. And I think like seeing venues like that is going to be, it's should be of interest actually to musicians as well, right? I would think.
I hope so.
But people watching at home and get to see a high quality concert. So, which is one of the things we're going to touch on today. Okay, cool. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
And donate, kkfi.org/donate. I'll make sure and plug that a couple of times in here too. But yeah, so today we are talking again about, well, I wanted to just not to spread the theme a little bit wider to connecting with audiences, because personally, I think live streams are just one way to connect with audiences. So we're not, we can speak about anything, but live streams being something that's pretty topical, more people are starting to do it, if not have been doing it for however many months this is going on now. I don't like to think about it, but anyway, so connecting with audiences, let's see, Kadesh. Yeah, I feel you. Connecting with audiences is kind of the broader points that we wanted to touch on, but I wanted to briefly introduce our panelists today. So we have Julia joining us from LA. Julia Othmer is a piano-playing songstress known for her passionate performances. She's currently presenting Songs of September, a 30-day online voter registration drive concert series. Maybe the first of its kind.
That's cool.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. Yeah, her most recent album is Sound. Peter Lindblad of Elmore Magazine described it as spellbinding with stunningly sophisticated and dramatic architecture. Her music is featured on Witches of East End, Switched at Birth, The Lying Game, Army Wives, and Degrassi, The Next Generation. Cool. She has shared the stage with Sarah McLachlan, Emmylou Harris, Hart, Regina Spektor, Amanda Palmer, Lisa Loeb, and John Wade, and most recently opened for The Alarm on their US and UK tour. So Julia Othmer, hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm very well. I'm very happy to be here with you.
Should we talk about the weather in LA, or are we all just going to check in? We're a little scattered this panel actually, so.
It's fire season in LA, unfortunately.
Yep.
Intensely hot. Terrible, yeah.
Okay, well, so who else? We have Kadesh. Kadesh Flow is a rapper with an MBA, a trombone super cyan, I pronounced that correctly, and a Billboard charting recording performing artist. Tromboned on tracks with hip-hop stars like Jidenna and underground stalwarts like Strange Music's Ubiquitous and JL. And he's also opened for Janelle Monáe, Tech9, Rakim, and others. And Kadesh, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's cool to be among some familiar faces and learn some and maybe contribute, hopefully some helpful thing or two.
Please, yeah. I mean, your trombone is there in the background. I can see if we could get really stuck.
Yeah. If you want something loud and obnoxious, then I can deliver. Yeah, for sure.
Trombone and Zoom meetings. That's why not?
I've done plenty over the last 6 months. So.
Yeah. And then we have Matt Pryor. So for 20 years, Matt Pryor has released over 20 albums as the singer and songwriter for the Get Up Kids, the New Amsterdams, and as a solo artist. He's also recorded 2 albums for his kids as the Terrible Twos, which are described as folk songs about dinosaurs and bugs. Primarily a balladeer and specializes in songs for anniversaries and special occasions. And that is taken from your downright bio. So
yeah,
if you'd like to amend, yeah.
I didn't send you a new bio. Sorry.
It's all right.
I'm bad about that.
Yeah. Bio, just within the last 5 months, that's the bio we're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
Well, thanks for being here. And so, Matt, you're in Lawrence, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Kadesh in Kansas City. I just happen to be in Colorado at the moment, but yeah, so we're all over the place. And Bill is at KKFI. So, last week, as Bill mentioned, these conversations spread out over 3 weeks, but we're here to talk for about 90 minutes. And last week we had what we called a COVID check-in, and it was really a chance to kind of touch base with some folks. We kind of had it was a really nice conversation. It touched on a lot of things we heard in our comments and feedback from people watching. A lot of it was resonating. One of the things about MixMaster that we've always wanted to do was kind of offer a time, a dedicated time and a space, virtual now as it is, to just talk about these things. Previously, that's been things like how to get your music played on the radio, how to book gigs, all the practical stuff. Again, the context is a little bit different this time. So although this is probably something we want to try, we know that folks here on the panel have done some pretty unique stuff and have kind of rolled with the changes, so to speak, with COVID times. But really we're kind of focusing on use the artist as somebody who connects with an audience, and that's the focus here today. But I wanted to kind of give you all an option, a moment to kind of just check in. You know, how are your thoughts, or what are your thoughts on you know, how your careers have been since March, since we've all been hunkered down, since live shows and tours have not been an option. I know probably all of you or some of you had tour plans in place before this happened. So, you know, everyone's lives turned upside down, and, you know, everything's a little bit different. But, you know, how are you guys coping? Does anyone feel like taking that up, or creatively, you know, what's been something that's been surprised you out of this time?
Sure.
Julia or Kadesh, go ahead. Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I mean, obviously, it's been weird. I landed a part-time job as a grant writer for a nonprofit here on March 6th. And I thought, oh, yeah, this is going to be awesome, because I was looking for something to build a skill set that I have that I hadn't really been touching since I took the leap to do music full-time, but something that wouldn't affect my touring and whatnot. And grant writing is kind of perfect for that, and it extends a whole professional lane. And I had like all these bookings, and this was looking like, you know, it was going to be somewhat of a breakout year for me. And then like the week after I started that position, I lost like thousands of dollars in bookings, and or it might have been 2 weeks after. But I think the most surprising thing for me has actually been that, even though like obviously there's way less opportunity to perform, this has actually been still good for me from a growth in people who I want to be aware of becoming aware of me. A lot of the conventions that were thinking about booking me or we were in talks about ended up having me on live streams. I ended up getting pulled into some pretty big live stream shows with some pretty big backers and producers that like just put me on a lot of people's radars. I did not expect that to happen that way. And they're like, you know, there's a pretty prolific video game composer who's working on a rap mixtape who heard about me on Twitter and sent me a song that I just obliterated. And you know, just stuff like that, and being able to really connect with people who follow me and engage with my art has also been really cool, whether that be via Patreon or via live streams, or you know, I've been like judging like impromptu beat battles, and people have been inviting me on there. With people with bigger audiences have been guesting me on their stuff. So there's been a lot of good with that, as well as like practicing breakthroughs and some good content creation. So it's ups and downs. Like I crashed and burned emotionally in June. I had to figure out a couple things about my process to get past that. But
I did that in July. I completely relate to that.
Man, yeah, but that's it. That's pretty much it.
Cool.
Weird time, but trying to figure it out.
Yeah, well, we're going to go back and talk about each one of those things, because that's a lot. Yeah, awesome. Matt, what about you? I mean, you've been touring a lot over the last couple of years. You know, more than maybe than previous years. Is that fair? I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of intentional. We put out a record, and my band, the Get Up Kids, put out a record in May of last year, and we were kind of like, we had a new record label. We really liked the record, and we're like, okay, we're going to make a push for it. We're going to like, even if that means like going on a tour, excuse me, and not really making very much money, but we're going to go to we started in Europe, and then we went to Australia and Japan and Malaysia, and then we did the States, and we were actually doing a support tour that was going to be our last tour on the cycle of the record. That was a really long tour. It was going to be most of February and March, and then we were basically going to like slow down after that. And we were actually in New York City March 13th when everything got shut down, and we were talking to like the tour manager of the band we were opening for, and we're like, what are we doing? You know, because it was like, and they're like, well, they just shut down every single city we're going to in the next 2 weeks, so everybody go home. And so then we had to like quarantine for 2 weeks because we had been in the, you know, the thick of it in New York. And then, to be honest, like all of this, like a lot of the online stuff that I've been doing as a solo artist, I was intending to do once that tour wrapped up, because I really wanted to have more of my like solo presence be more of an online thing, because I've been touring for over 20 years, and I have a family, and it's hard, and I try to do it smarter and less. And so I was trying to like come up with ways. Like I had looked into Patreon. Like I already had a Patreon account. I had already been doing Downright. I'd already done some live streams before. It's just kind of a careful what you wish for sort of thing of like, I didn't really want to have a global pandemic in order for me to have my life to slow down and do more stuff online. But, it's, forced my hand. And luckily I was pretty adept at, well, I wouldn't say I'm learning as I go, but
Yeah,
so that's where I'm at.
So you were at least kind of open to the idea of alternatives to touring.
I wasn't even I was in favor of it because I was like, I didn't see touring as a sustainable model for me. I'm 43, like I've been doing this since I was 19. So I don't really want to be gone 6-9 months out of the year. I want to be home with my kids and working in my garden. And so I needed to come up, with other ways to make money online. And so I really, and then, I've been doing Downright for over 7 years now. And, I've just found that like, there's a real like positive kind of one-on-one engagement you can have with people when you do it this way that maybe you don't get when you're playing. I mean, you can kind of do that when you're playing like a really small venue. But yeah, so.
Cool. Well, we definitely want to talk more about Downright as well. So I'm making some notes here that we'll come back to. But Julia, it's been a crazy 2020. How has it been for you specifically? And sorry, it's a big question.
In general, I think that a question I constantly ask, and that usually gives me the most flexibility in any situation, is, okay, here we are, whether it's a good or a bad dynamic, what's awesome about this, or what could be amazing about this, even if I'm not getting it immediately. And like everyone else on this panel, touring was canceled. There were a lot of things I was looking forward to that are shifting around, but it also gave such an incredible opportunity to really be quiet for a bit and not be running around and go kind of deeper inside, really thinking to myself, what is it that I'm really wanting to do? What am I wanting to do as an artist? What am I wanting to do as a songwriter? And I recognized that like when we were going in the studio, I would always ask like, what's amazing for this song, or what's amazing for this piece of music that's developing, and later on I'll figure out what to do with it. And I found myself, while I hopefully have always been attentive to the community around the music we make, I found myself sort of, my first question was, how could I be showing up to be supportive of the people in my music community, the people that are interested in our songs, or even just the people in our neighborhood, and deepening that relationship, because that connection, that community, that intimacy, I recognize is all the reason why I'm doing music. And I found that it was a silver lining of the pandemic to get a bit quieter and calmer and more focused on what it was that was really important, including gardening. I'm with you, Matt. Fuck yeah. Oh, I mean, yes. You said the first one.
Nick said we could swear.
I know, but I was gonna be so good about it.
Bill said you could swear.
Yeah.
I deferred
well.
to Bill, you know. Yeah, anyway.
I'm really trying to behave.
I think, it's funny with small kids in my house. I mean, swearing, kids, pandemic, it all adds up and multiplies and becomes just fun time. So anyway, you're welcome to express yourself anyway. Anyway, that makes sense. Well, Julia, I mean, kind of to that, and interesting to talk about the studio. I wanted to ask each of you specifically, like, what about your creative, like, especially considering, we've got the pandemic, but we've also had, massive social changes, Black Lives Matter, the murder of George Floyd. I'm envious of you if you can avoid politics these days, just the general political scene, the identity politics that's happening. So it's not just the pandemic. Some of us, I know personally at various times, I feel like music and sometimes is pointless, and writing a new song and putting a song out feels just, completely inadequate. But how have you guys done with, creating, actually writing songs or whatever, whatever your process is? And you've all kind of, I think, mentioned or alluded to process. Has that, and breakdowns of the process also, have you been able to create new work? Anyone who wants to go for Kadesh, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I actually, similarly to what Matt said, I had some goals that I was trying to figure out how I was going to slow down enough to get going on them. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I could do this. I wanted to experiment with something that I actually is what kind of put me on anybody's radar. When I was in grad school, I released like a bunch of anime and video game themed raps just on YouTube. And they ended up becoming like four request driven, kind of just like nerd rap albums. And I was releasing a song every week. Every social platform except pretty much TikTok's algorithms are way more restrictive because they have to be now. TikTok's just newer. So I wasn't necessarily expecting to do the numbers that I was doing, but I wanted to re-engage my base of YouTube subscribers and then have content that I could just like chop up and use in different places indefinitely, which is what I'm doing now. So when everything kind of hit the fan, I immediately started working on content batching, and I ended up reeling off a song or like a trombone video game music cover or something like that every week for, it was like 3.5 months. And I thought that would carry us through the pandemic, but I didn't realize the response would be so atrocious. But that's a different conversation. So that was really good, and I know I'm constantly writing. I really appreciate what Julia said, because I kind of wish I had shut down versus my brain forcing me to shut down for half of June and part of July, where I kind of crashed and burned and felt pretty overwhelmed by everything that was happening on the planet, and like just having to engage because there are conversations that are happening right now that are impossible for me to avoid. There's positive and negative to that, but I mean, right now I'm writing like 4 albums. There's the one that I just got. I'm finishing up the one that I just landed the stuff for. There's one that I'm trying to get off of my back. That's a sequel to Room Service, which I did in a hotel room at a festival I played. This is like the basement version of or the basement sequel of Room Service. There's Brass and Bougie 2. Kemet and Marcus and I are writing that right now. And then there's a collective of guys that I'm in a little thing with that we're working on stuff. So it's been really honestly constant, even though I haven't spent time putting together any video. I guess now in like a couple months, I'm still like repurposing everything and going back and editing videos that are on my phone and chopping them up for Instagram and doing photo shoots and stuff. So the creative thing has been really good. I just restarted the Artist Way to try to re-engage myself. And I every time there's a period of major transition in my life, I go through that book. So that is kind of where I am creatively now. And I haven't practiced my trombone this much since I was 13. So that's really awesome.
That's amazing. Wow. So I feel like there's plenty of in your response that I need some like definitions on content batching. I think there's definitely worlds that you move in that I have no idea about, which I'm very excited to learn more. But well, I mean, content. So like what does that all mean? Like
what is content bashing?
What is content?
Or
So batching, yes.
batching.
Like,
I said bashing. I'm sorry.
Not like bashing.
How do you beat up your own content? I'm sure we all do that on our own.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's basically stockpiling your creativity so that you can focus on actually rolling it out without scrambling to create the next thing. Mm-hmm. So for me, my goal that I set immediately was to get an 8-week backlog that would eventually turn into a 12-week backlog. The June thing happened, so I ended up like never getting to the 12-week backlog, but I got to the 8-week one pretty quickly, where I had something where I was basically 2 months ahead of myself if I was releasing something weekly, like every time I release something.
But are you like, when you do that, are you like releasing like an actual like a a digital release of a song, or like just some sort of like what exactly, like what would be an example of the content that you're batching? Like
Mostly like a YouTube video with a corresponding Bandcamp download, like something simple. Because I'm not trying to do like a single release, you know, where it's fully rolled out or anything like that. Just stuff just cool things to engage the people who follow me.
Yeah.
Grow that some, and then hopefully, you know, build some more emails out of that. That was like also a thing that I wanted to do for when live shows did come back. I'd have a stronger email list that I could work with on some of the, you know, DIY touring situations.
That's cool.
That was the goal.
I mean, yeah, that's actually I've never thought of that before. I've actually done that in like other things in life, but have never done it with like when I had a podcast a couple of years ago. I made sure I was always like a month out of having enough podcasts, just because I didn't want to be like, oh shit, I need to interview somebody this week, you know?
Yeah.
But that's really smart. I might steal that idea.
Thanks. I'd say, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm in the middle of this 30-day concert series, and now I'm really wishing I had content batched, because after we get off of this, I'm going to have to be doing a recording for tomorrow. And then tomorrow for the day after that, and for tomorrow, the day after that.
Yeah, maybe you could have like planned
ahead of the curve.
Could have planned it like an album campaign or something, where you had like 30 songs written over the course of a couple of months or whatever, and then.
Well, we're in it, and we're doing a song every day this month, and that's just the way it is. Now, granted, it's mostly cover songs, because it's songs of protest and change and hope.
Cool.
Encouraging people to get out the vote. And for those not in the U.S., you know, celebrating everybody who's raising their voice to make this world a better place. So it's kind of, I wanted that insistence. And at the beginning of October, of course, some of the voter registration in some states that closes. So it needed to be September. So content batching, I'm going to have to think about that, the next initiative like this I dive into.
Yeah, man, that's my new industry music writing buzz phrase.
Oh, but that at 30 days of doing something every day is like super impressive. So like I have respect, Julia.
Well, we're at day 9. Let's see what
You're gonna go mad, woman.
I already am mad. I already am.
Okay. You might say you might be mad to try and do it in the first place. So
Yeah.
But you know, stay mad, keep it up. Yeah, well, and just so you know, you mentioned cover songs, and I'm curious. I've definitely found stuff that we've put out, just, you know, whether it's just put a camera on and play a song, whether it's live or not. I found there's a thing of cover versions. I felt like there's an obvious appetite for songs that people are familiar with. And we talked about this last week, you know, soothing songs, that part of that part of being that familiarity comes with, or part of that is that they know it and it's familiar and they can enjoy it. And I guess it's a different process, but so is there a distinction between this? I know this project has a specific goal, your project Songs of September, but what about your original and creative work? Is there a correlation in your head, or is that just me? And, you know, how have you been with writing your own material?
Well, it started, so after we had our, shut down in place, stay shelter in place orders coming in also in March, we sort of pivoted to the live streaming space. And at that point we decided to be doing, we were going to live stream once a week from my studio. And that developed into also live streaming once a week, where the neighbors would gather and everyone would come to the end of their driveways and, get a little picnic basket. And we started doing those on Saturdays. So I found myself with 2 live streaming shows that were happening every week. And my original content was not my repertoire of original content, which is normally what I focus on when I perform, was not so extensive that I could be doing 2 new shows every week. So I just started learning tons of cover songs, and especially for the live streaming that I would do out in front of the house, my neighbors, it's an accident of geography that I'm making noise in the neighborhood. And so I thought one of the ways I could also be reaching out to some people that I hadn't even yet met, even though maybe they lived down the street or across the street, was to be able to create a common language with cover songs. And it also allowed me to have a place where I could ask the people that were engaging with me, like, what would they like to hear? Is there a song I could give to them? Is there something that would be soothing to them or comforting or riotous or whatever it was they were feeling? And so it could like deepen our conversation. And we kept that pace up through the end of July, which for me was a big learning curve because I'd never learned so many there's like, 80 cover songs or 100 cover songs or something. That was just a lot. That was really new for me. Before that, I'd only maybe performed a handful of covers in my shows. And I think communicating via music is communicating via music. And certainly there have been songs that I have learned that I feel have expressed me far better than I could have by something I'd written maybe in that moment. And I just, again, love the connection with audiences. And cover songs have just given me this whole other body of work to be pulling from and sharing with people. And for a 30-day song project, that's definitely helping.
Nice. Well, and I think your goal, is definitely a noble one in using the tools. Do you see, I hate to frame it like this, but unsure about when we're going to get back out touring and when we're going to be able to play, do you see it coming around to focusing on a specific album, or I don't know, do you know what that path is right now, or are you just kind of happy to do what you're doing and make those connections?
I'm going to take it as it comes. For example, on the Songs of September, the project we're working on right now, my husband who collaborates with me, we set the bar really high for ourselves. So every live performance, it's got to be album worthy. And if it isn't, we have to keep going until it is. So by the end of the month, we'll have 30 tracks for an album to choose from, which could be a fun experiment, like playlisting and asking fans to create their own playlist. And we have multiple albums that are in process, and also a few things that we were intending to release this summer, but given the climate on so many levels, it didn't feel appropriate. Maybe we had a new project we were going to be putting out there, and it just didn't feel like this summer was the right time for that. Oh, maybe I'm content batching.
Yeah.
I was going to say that, but then I decided not to. That's clearly what's happening. Because it's not
right.
like
Well, I'm content
like
batching.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kadesh.
It's awesome. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, he just gave it a name.
I think a lot of people do this. I just think that as artists, it's really easy for us to discard what we make or shelve it for later or a more appropriate moment, when right now it doesn't really make sense to waste anything. It's more like, how could this be?
Yeah. I used to be real bad about that. Like if I was writing a particular record and then I wrote like a song that I really liked but didn't fit on that particular record for that particular project, after I sat on it for 6 months, I would just be like, nah, this song sucks. But then I just had to remember, like 6 months ago, I thought this song was awesome. Like I really thought it was great. And it's hard to like remember that, because you're always like, I want that new, fresh thing. But like in the now times, it's, makes way more sense to like have a backlog. I'm doing that now with like, people have been asking me to put stuff on Bandcamp that's just like demos and like old covers and like, and I just put it up there as kind of like pay what you want, because it's sort of just for super fans and stuff like that. And that's something that I want to get into doing with my Patreon, of just like, all right, if you're supporting my Patreon, then you have access to this whole 25 years worth of like back catalog bullshit. That's, if you like, I liked it enough at one point to record it. I didn't end up liking it enough to release it, or I re-recorded it because I didn't think that recording was good enough. But people are completists, man. They really, like, super fans get like really hardcore about that kind of stuff.
Wow. Well, and I wanted to ask you, Matt, so you've been on Downright for 7 years. So Downright is what would you call it? A commissioning website platform?
It's a custom songwriting platform.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's kind of like it's a little bit more like I don't know how to describe. It's kind of, I think of it as like the Etsy of songwriting, where it's just sort of like you fill out my question, you pay the fee, you fill out my questionnaire of like, what do you want this song to be about? And then kind of like, what kind of a song do you want? Which is, granted, it's just me and a guitar. So it's like, our options are limited as far as like genre goes. But and it's mostly like folk songs and ballads and stuff, but just like it's a personalized song. I'll write lyrics based on, you know, your wedding anniversary, and I've been doing it for 7 years, and it's been going. I keep waiting for it to dry up, and it's just still been consistent. I mean, you know, it's not guaranteed money because it just kind of trickles in, but it you know, and the bulk of it comes in around Christmas or Valentine's Day, which I've never had like a seasonal aspect of my job before, other than like back in the indie rock days of like you don't want to tour in the summer because you're playing all these colleges and stuff like that. But so yeah, that's what I do.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah, I have so much respect. I actually had my second commission ever just recently. Last week I wrote a song for Explore Lawrence.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they have a Lawrence Promise, which is they had a kind of campaign to have businesses sign up and promise to, you know, wear masks and all there's a whole list. And I got the call to write a song for it. And luckily, I mean, I didn't know I could do it. And it was the song wrote itself and came out really quick. And it, you know, it took a month to make a little video. I went downtown and shot video businesses and that kind of thing.
That's cool.
But to me, that was an easy commission because Lawrence promised I had a document to work from. So I guess it's similar.
I mean, that's the same thing. It's just, it takes at least part of the creative process off the table, and that you're not having to like create it from whole cloth. You know, like you have this sort of like, you're still having to come up with like a lyric structure and a rhyme structure for whatever these people want. But I mean, you know, the more details they give me, the easier it is, because it's just like, if you have a thing that only you and your partner say to each other, that's like your kind of like cute thing that you say to each other, that's a chorus. That's easy. You know, like it's just like, that's the, so, you know, it's definitely a different frame of reference for songwriting than writing your own stuff, because you are writing it for someone else. But once you kind of like wrap your head around that, it's fairly easy.
So how many songs, there's a question here actually in the Zoom chat, how many songs have you written over 7 years?
A lot. Do you really want to know?
Yeah, absolutely.
About 1,200.
Jeez. Wow.
You want me to write you one now? Is that what you said?
Well, so I'm just curious, how quick could you know, you must have that down. That's insane.
It depends on what the song's about.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, what I think is, yeah, I mean, I personally want to ask lots of questions about that and pick your brain, you know, but we could go down a rabbit hole there. Here's the question. So you have a Patreon, and you have the downright and you have a Patreon. So what seems to me most interesting there is you have somebody who you're making a specific piece of art, piece of music for one person. So, I mean, to me, like that's kind of the ultimate connection maybe, or I don't know, but you know, that is a really strong kind of fertile connection to begin with. Presumably they're already fans, so maybe it's not the first interaction. I mean, I guess they would more than likely be familiar with who you are and your music. But so have people come back for more than one song? Do they sign up for your Patreon? When you were touring, do you meet them? You know, how does all that play together?
Yeah, so sometimes people will do like if they have a kid and they have me write a song for their kid, and then 3 years later they have another kid, then they feel like they need to buy another song for their other kid. And you know, whenever I'm like putting something out or going on tour, like I have that list of people who I know are already fans that I can send stuff out to. And the thing that's kind of interesting is that like people will come up to me at shows and they'll be like, "You wrote a song for me and my wife," and that's all they'll say. Like, "You wrote a song for me and my wife," and I'll go, Did you like it? And they'll go, "Oh yeah, we loved it, because they don't finish the sentence ever, because I don't know, like I just send it off. And like sometimes they'll send me, like, you see people post it on Facebook or whatever that they really like it. But yeah, it's a very specific, like, kind of one-on-one connection, which is kind of different than having like a smaller group connection, which is because then sometimes you get people who are like at shows like, "Will you play our Downright song at the show?" And I'm like, I don't know it. Like I wrote it and I wrote the lyrics and I recorded it and then it's yours now. Like it's not. So.
Yeah. That's fascinating. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think one thing I'd heard, which kind of was a revelation moment, I think it was Lennon Bone at a previous Mixmaster event mentioned about 1,000 true fans. I don't know if this is a concept you guys have heard about, which is 1,000 people who will spend $100 or more on your music or your art throughout a year, in any given year, which adds up to $100,000, which is enough to build a career or a music practice on. And I would think those people would be at least, well, to be strict about it, they're qualifying immediately. But then, it's again coming back and then. So
well, I think when you, especially in like, I don't know how it is with everyone else, but like, my mindset growing up was to try and, as a like touring rock band, was to try and reach as many people as possible. And now I realize like, you're not trying to make $10 off of 100 people. You're trying to make $100 off of 10 people, and it ends up being the same amount of money. But
right,
it sounds, I don't know, it sounds crass to talk about it like that. But that's the same like thing about the 1,000 true fans or whatever.
Well,
yeah,
go ahead, sorry.
Just to piggyback off of that, there was like with trying to leave the whole financial tech situation and try the whole artist route and how risky that situation is and was. I thought about that model a lot. And one of the things, especially being like kind of in this subgenre where I'm adjacent to nerdcore, which is like lyrical content about, sci-fi and video games, anime, and things that like nerds and geeks like. And also being in hip hop world, with the quote unquote nerdier audiences and at the video game conventions and the anime conventions and whatnot, just that niche down situation really plays into that model way more effectively than I would say at like the broader hip hop and jazz shows that I do, just because those people know that you are already doing things that they really, really care about. So you tend to see what Matt's talking about a lot, where how people come and just want to buy every item that I have, just to support or what have you. So you'll get, you might only have like 20 or 30 people buy something after the show, but they're all spending like $50 or something like that. So it's a completely different thing. It's drastically different from everything else that I do. And it's really been huge to try to build upon just that single interaction, with like deep interactions with like, for me, it's like 30 or 40 people on a regular basis who I view kind of as friends at this point. I've never really viewed anybody as a fan for real. Like I was like, okay, are you family? Are you a listener? Like, what are we doing here? But they're also spending like a pretty decent amount of money on my stuff, like on an annual basis, and that grows. So the goal has been, since I've been doing this, to try to just gradually grow that number, and then whatever else comes in, I appreciate you, and let's keep the open, loving engagement going and whatnot.
Yeah, and
I agree with that.
I think to clarify, we're talking money, we're talking numbers, and that's fine. But I mean, I think that equates to a meaningful connection and a meaningful contribution, and things are priced a certain way because they're more labor intensive to produce, or they're more unique. And I think that's, a lot of the times, the art world, visual art world is much more comfortable with that kind of thinking about, this is one piece, nobody else is going to have this painting or this sculpture, so that's why it's that kind of price. I think there's a little parallel there, so I don't think we should beat ourselves up about it. Julia, have you found that as you progress, and I'm sure as you're doing these kinds of things since the pandemic, those people, they feel like they're even more connected to you? Have you experienced that, or?
I hope they feel more connected. I certainly feel more connected. Just the, if nothing else, the consistency with this audience that's engaging on your social media or your live streaming platform. And I think most of us as artists don't take for granted the people that really step up and are supportive of what we do, whether they are able to present that in a financial sense or whether it's just being present and sharing music and being there. I mean, that's what I do music for, is that intimacy. Music has this incredible ability to create friends out of strangers very, very quickly. And I find that to be one of the most magnificent aspects of music. And if that can translate in a live streaming situation or be amplified by the fact that maybe we're all kind of pivoting to the digital space, well, we're here anyway, so we might as well make the best of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, I think you did. I think you absolutely did. Yeah.
I would say patrons are an essential part of keeping our lights on. I feel very grateful that there have been certain, and I really, Kadesh, I really appreciate what you said about, I don't really like the word fan either. And I'm really glad that you said that. But those people that are engaged, it's, I'm repeating myself.
Yeah, you're okay. Well, we do have some questions, but before we get to questions from some of the folks watching, so I don't want to recap, but like Julia, for example, we see your setup there behind you. So you are like ready to go, and it sounds great. It looks great. I know you mentioned that you have some help on it, so we're not gonna expect to lay out all the tech details. But so live streams. What have you guys done? Is it a solo effort? I know there's Kadesh. You mentioned a whole slew of things, but working with other people who've also pivoted, to use that word. Like from turning on phones to on the back porch or whatever it is, to really kind of thematic. And Julia, I'll say your production stuff is just fantastic. I mean, it really, and that's what I said before we got on the call. It's easy to watch that, which is important. So I think I do want to reference some of the tech things, and so if you guys have tips and tricks or tools that you use and that people really need to know. And there is one question along those lines. Brand new artist getting started. Whether that means live streaming, I'm not sure. But so do you want to talk a bit about your setup, Julia, or what you've tried to do? What the different approaches you've had to live streaming or producing content during this time?
Sure. Well, the live streaming that we were doing, especially April through July, the two shows a week. One was in the studio where you have a more controlled environment, and one was outside in the front lawn. But we used the same kind of technology to deliver both shows where, and it's inexpensive. We used an iPad and an iPhone. Through iPad, I used an app called Lyrics, which would connect me to another program called Caster, which would allow me to live stream to multiple platforms at once. So I was able to live stream to my Facebook page, my Facebook personal profile, and YouTube simultaneously. And I think Caster has a free subscription. We opted for like $10 a month, which for us was an excellent deal. We're basically capturing the ambient sound both in our studio and outside, just using a normal PA. I would highly recommend making sure that your internet connection is high speed and as stable as possible. Make sure your phones are in airplane mode. And in order to get onto Instagram for live streaming, I literally have a music stand right here, and it would be next to the piano or in front of me if we were outside. My iPad is running. I'm going through Lyrics onto Caster, and on my iPhone, I'm streaming live to Instagram at the same time. So I think that's somewhat manageable for most people's setup. Through Songs of September, because at the moment we're staying stable and we really want to be honoring these songs. We do have a nice camera that we're using, and then there's a bit of technological language which I'm not very fluent in. But Caster, Lyrics, iPhone, iPad, just get a good sound in your space and a solid internet connection. And that's what carried us through, what was it, like 16 weeks of, shows.
Cool. And you have lights as well, right? Lights are, that's what helps for that consistency.
That's what we've been for our Songs of September. We started using lights, but otherwise it would just be, like my little table lamp next to me when I was on the piano for the other ones, and when it was outside, it was the sunlight.
Yeah. Cool. Caster, I've not used, and Lyrics. Okay.
CASTR, Caster, and Lyrics.
Oh, that's why I couldn't.
LIX.
I was just trying to look these apps up and I couldn't find Caster.
And you know what? There's probably a lot of different options. Those were just the ones that we kind of fell into that worked for our price point and seemed to be the most conducive to getting it done relatively easily.
Very good. Do you have how important is comments and that kind of thing with your live stream with being real time on the internet?
I personally think that's awesome, and I sort of separated it out where on Thursdays I would be in the studio, and so between every song I'm checking. I would have my computer up and be able to see who's commenting where, and I was attempting to stay current with that because it's so great to have that conversation, and I really enjoy that. I want to know how people are doing. I want to know if a song's working for them. I want to say hi, and just recognize, the people that are showing up. For our outdoor concerts, especially because the neighbors were also there, I tended to not address that, and I would only go back later and engage. Because just in the moment, it would feel disconnected to one or the other if I'm, I'm looking at a computer or, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that's a kind of a new skill set as far as being a performer. When you have a ticker tape of comments going on, is to like not start reading them while you're singing, because it'll mess you up and you'll be like, I've had to learn that. So I've taken the I've enlisted a couple of my kids to help me, and they'll read the chat, and then in between songs they'll ask me questions or whatever. And now a couple of those people, like Kadesh, we were talking about, like people who are like friends now, who are on like every stream that I do, and they talk to my son Jersey, and they're like, Jersey, ask your dad about no. And so like he's like, part of it now, and he's almost more popular than me at this point.
The cool call and I do the hip hop call and response thing when I perform, and it took me a while. I think because the technical suggestions are really great. Like my streaming setup is solid but needs some work. Like I'm kind of bare bonesing it. It works, but it definitely could be better. But one of the things that I had to figure out was the difference in energy distribution between like having an audience and like just staring at a virtual audience that you can't actually see. You can see a number of people who are watching and see comments. Whereas I feel like my job as an MC, especially solo wise, was to kind of try to suck the air out of the room and redistribute it. In this case, it's like I am all the energy, which is somewhat more exhausting, even though I'm not moving around as much, and I'm in a more stationary, confined setting. So one of the things that I would recommend I think Nick, you mentioned like for like new artists who may try to stream because they can't perform right now, is really trying to think about how you can engage with the audience virtually in a way that still makes the show more effective. So for an example, a lot of the call and response stuff, I would be like, when I say this, you say this, and everybody's like, ah, or whatever. I'm like, I have a song called Glassy Eyes. It's Glassy Eyes, we broke the glass ceiling is the hook. And I'm like, can you put Glassy Eyes in the comments? And then I'm like checking, hyping up the comments, like get Glassy Eyes in those comments, get A in those. I need to see A in those comments. And then it's like, and it's a really fun thing. And it's also really gratifying. So I would think about stuff like that. Just you're still engaging even though you're looking at a screen.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because you've like kind of trained yourself as a live performer in front of a crowd of how to like work a crowd, and now you're having to like retrain your brain how to work this like virtual crowd that's all just like pictures of hands clapping and hearts and shit, and it's just like it's not the same gratification. It's great, it's awesome, I'm glad that they're there, but definitely a different skill set. That's awesome. I never thought about the call and response thing. That's a good idea.
It's like, I think on the MC thing and the whole idea of keeping people in a room, the little number of people that are watching, I think the first time I live stream, I was like, that number should stay the same until I finish a song. So if you're going to leave, just wait till the end of a song and walk out. That's the polite way to do this. We've worked for years to develop these.
That's how it was in the old times, Nick.
Yeah.
That's not how it is in the now times.
So I see you leaving out the back because you didn't. You accidentally clicked into this stream and you're regretting it instantly.
Something that I thought was kind of interesting and just kind of like trying to learn about like what the normal interaction is with like, so I did a ticketed live stream with two of my friends, and it was like 3 singer-songwriters, and we were all like kind of set up like this. It wasn't in Zoom, it was on a different platform, but we would like take turns playing songs, right? And like attendance, and we were on for like 2 hours because we hadn't talked to each other in forever, and we were just shooting the shit and telling stories and playing songs, and like attendance dropped off like by like 75% by the end of it. It was like no one wants to stare at their computer for that long. But then it was like available on the platform for like 48 hours after that, so people would go back and watch it or whatever. But it was just kind of like, oh, they don't want a 2-hour show no matter how good it is, because you're still, and you get a lot of this. You know.
So but what else have you done, Matt? I mean, that seems like a pretty unique one, and you've been guests on different, and this is something Kadesh, you mentioned this earlier, like producers and people who had big events planned, and we just did one ourselves with Irish Fest at the weekend, which was phenomenal actually, because of it turned into, it would normally be a bunch of touring artists, and the fest brought in all Kansas City artists, and Carswell Hope, my band, got to be the backing band, and it was a big production. It was nothing like any single independent artist could do. So Matt, you've kind of jumped on other bills. I don't even know how to talk about this. And where you're part of other events, or I don't know, can you open for acts virtually these days? Anyway, I know you've done that kind of thing.
Yeah, I basically just kind of, whenever anybody asks me to do anything, especially now, whether it's a podcast or a stream or a charity thing or whatever, I just say yes to everything, because I mean, why not? And then a couple of things that were just like this, where it's just like have a conversation. The one I did for the bridge was a bit more orchestrated, as far as like cutting to and from people, but it really just needs kind of like someone, like you need a platform, like, and Zoom works, though I think there's some that are a little bit more, look less like a board meeting and more like a concert, and you need to have like one person, and like we have Bill, I think, doing this here, that's like directing it, kind of, like it's like cutting to and from people, but it seems to be fairly easy. And then I've been working with this company called SoundRink that before was who we used for doing like VIP, like meet and greet kind of tickets and stuff. But now they're doing like live streams. So the one I did last week, it was like a live stream, and then it had a t-shirt bundle with the live stream ticket, and then it had a VIP like meet and greet over Zoom as an add-on as well. And that was the first time I'd ever done anything like that, and it seemed to go pretty well. Like a lot of the people who bought a ticket also bought the t-shirt, which I think was, I wasn't expecting that.
Cool.
But again, people want to support,
Yeah. Go ahead. What was the platform? SoundRink? Rink. Okay.
Yeah. They're yeah. They've been around for a while, doing like like if you want to do a meet and greet before a concert or something like that, and buy like a ticket for that.
Oh.
They do all the organizing for that.
Yeah, but you've also just done, I mean, off the cuff live stream. Sometimes I think I've noticed, sometimes you just kind of, you don't plan so well. Maybe you have not batched your content appropriately, and you're just like, I haven't picked up a guitar. I haven't, I've done nothing. I've been gardening, and I have my phone, and that technology is right there. So, I even bought it.
It tends to be at around like 5 o'clock on a Friday.
Right.
And I'm gonna have a pint on the front porch and just play some songs for people. And I kind of really like that environment, but I also don't know when I'm going to be in that mood, so I just kind of do it kind of whenever. Maybe I'll go do that when we're done here.
So is it different? It works differently? I mean, you get something different out of it, or you're kind of approaching it from a different point of view. Do the reactions from people watching seem different?
I mean, it's kind of like, I think when you're doing a live stream, just like on Instagram or Facebook, They're just kind of like unannounced and free. It's a bit more kind of broad than if you're doing like a ticketed event. It'll be less people on like a, probably like 5 times more people on just like a free live stream than a ticketed one. Because I mean, money's still money, like people got to eat. But I think it's kind of like what Kadesh was talking about like just like creating content. I think that doing those like just kind of random live streams just for fun are still creating content. It's still like reminding people that you're out there, and then you can plug stuff. And I've brought up the tipping thing before with like Venmo and PayPal, and I'm not good at like selling myself in the moment. Like it's like on stage reminding people that they can go to the merch table or whatever. But yeah, I think it's still like connecting with people.
Yeah. Well, Kadesh, what about you and the different kind of live stream events that you've done?
Yeah, really similar to what Matt said. This is such a valuable conversation to me because I'm learning a few things, and y'all are letting me know that I'm not crazy, or maybe we're all crazy. I don't know. Clinically, challenged, or whatever the appropriate term is to say there. I first started. It took me a while to get my setup figured out because I didn't. Because I guess the difference between myself and Julia and Matt is that like solo stuff is over beats and I play trombone, and if I'm doing that in this non-compressed situation, I might kill somebody. So just with the loudness of the instrument. So the first couple things, I was actually going to Eddie Moore's studio because he had everything set up already. But then I started trying to figure it out on my own, and I would just randomly go live on Facebook and try to figure out the sound. But people would just watch and let me know how everything sounded. And so those would end up being like really cool times to just interact with people on the music page and whatnot. And one of my old guys from college who, I don't know if he still does this, but he was like one of the coordinators for the Student Media Center, like the main one that I recorded all my stuff in, would hop on and like tell me what I was doing wrong. And I hadn't talked to him like in any way in like years, but he like follows our stuff and he's great. So some beautiful things from that. I think the first one that I did that was actually billed, even though it was free, was that Quarantine Beer Chugs Facebook group. And it was relatively new into its existence, so it was massive. It was like there were like thousands of people on this Facebook group like watching.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
It's still there, I think, but it's not as like active now that this thing's dragged on. But when shutdowns first started happening, some guys in Kansas City started a Quarantine Beer Chugs group. Two of them are musicians. If you're familiar with Zach Mufasa and Dominique Sanders. I think Zach was one of the main people that like started it, but it ended up getting to like 200,000 members and going worldwide in like a month. And then they did a concert series where they had somebody live streaming every night, and the tips were so good that it wasn't like, people were down to do them because you didn't know who you were going to get. And at that point in time, people were shelling out tips thinking that this was going to be a short-lived thing. But it moved into, once I got my setup figured out, thanks to my big bro IQ calling me and walking me through some stuff, we had some planned things where my big bro in like the indie hip hop world, Mega Ran, had some events come up, and I'm in a collective called the Nerdy People of Color Collective, and we're all over the place. And we had a Juneteenth stream, Gen Con, which is a tabletop gaming convention in, I believe, Indianapolis, ended up booking me as part of their thing with a kind of children's music folk group out of Oregon called the Double Clicks. And you're saying something, Matt?
Oh, I've heard of them. I haven't heard them, but I've heard of the Double Clicks before.
Oh, they're completely fun and adorable.
Yeah.
We met, they were on tour here, and I was trying to get into Gen Con anyway, and they just kind of threw the alley-oop. So it's been a lot of stuff like that. It's been all over the place. Rand's like private stream for his Patreon that he gates based on like you either buy a ticket or you subscribe to his Patreon to get on it. A bunch of stuff. So it's been completely all over the place. I guess the last thing I'll say is I have had to learn how to manage my trombone playing, because some of the things I've done where I've been brought in to do a live stream, such as like the Kansas City Museum, the way the audio was set up, everything has to go directly into a mic, which is completely contrary to what I would do as a trombone player so that I don't kill anybody. And but then watching the stream, when I was playing loud and going away from the mic, you barely hear the trombone. So I've had to adjust, like in the stuff I do from my basement, like I'm just adjusting levels on the preamp before like doing trombone solos. So it's just been a really cool learning process. But it's also something that I think will stay even when things come back, because like some of the convention after parties and even convention like main event shows that I've played over the last couple of years, you know, there'll be whatever amount of people in the crowd, but then there would be a Twitch stream where like thousands of people would be watching from wherever they are if they couldn't make the convention. And I just think this situation will normalize stuff like that, and just I think in some ways maybe give musicians a little bit more power, in the sense that like the fact that you don't have to be at a certain spot that doesn't want to pay you is a viable negotiating tool now. I think I'm very interested in seeing how that dynamic plays out as we come out of these weird times and whatnot.
For sure, yeah.
I very much agree with you. That it's a very, like, I think that being able, it's kind of like when YouTube creators started going into like comedy clubs and stuff like that, and it's just like, you didn't build up your fan base by touring your ass off. You built your fan base up by being online. And it's like, yeah, you can actually do that. People always have, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's cool too that you have, you know, that you're in that community that's already really tech savvy, you know, and completely like kind of understands the medium and stuff. My kids are always trying to get me to stream on Twitch, and I have no idea where to begin with it. Also, no one my age uses Twitch, so.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I kind of noticed with everyone, and it's true for me too, you all have somebody who either helps out or checks your sound, or somebody, so you're not really doing it on your own, even, well, maybe with the exception of the beers on the porch, because that maybe doesn't require it so much, or the, you know, the scope is a little limited if it's with your phone, but we all benefit from help. You think that's fair? It sounds like everybody does. Well, that's cool. There's more I would like to talk about, and I noticed, I mean, as and then maybe this kind of filters into what we were just mentioning, as venues start producing events that are safe, COVID safe, however you want to describe it, socially distanced, all of that. Those are now going live as well, and I'm kind of feeling, I'm wondering, is there another realignment that's going to have to happen as you're, you know, everything is online now all the time, but then you're performing to live audiences, and, you know, it's we're going to have to renegotiate that back a little bit. I'm worried. Maybe that can come up, but I wanted to address a couple of questions that have come in through as well. Well, Diana Ennis has asked, do you have peers that are reaching out to collaborate during these now times, she calls it? So, and Kadesh, you've mentioned multiple times, but I mean, if you wanted to mention it, or Julia, are folks reaching out? I mean, I'm very thankful for any time that people reach out, just whether it's to create something together or just to check in and offer feedback. But Julia, why don't you go? Have you?
Well, I consider this maybe as a certain kind of collaboration, just being on this panel. And I'm a big fan of collaborating, because I like that connection and that connectivity. I haven't experienced that a lot in terms of music. Maybe people saying, hey, would you like to live stream here for this event, in that regards, which is obviously fantastic. And I haven't yet figured out sort of technology in terms of some of that collaboration that I've seen people do, where they're performing, or they seem to perform in real time together. I think that's an interesting space to explore and pivot, and that's certainly on my list of things to do. But I have found that in a way, because of not touring, and because you might still be doing the same number of shows, maybe not, but you're not traveling in between, you're not loading in, you're not loading out, you're not setting up the merch table. There's actually so much more room and space around the shows that I'm going to be part of a radio play in Spanish on KKFI
cool.
in October. And I don't know if I could
That's
have,
awesome.
you know, done that if I hadn't been sort of in these times that we are. And if it had not been more of a virtual experience, or those who were coming together expecting it to be a virtual experience, So it's like, that's really cool. I haven't done something like that. How awesome. Ooh, I love it. If people want to collaborate, get in touch. I'm all about it.
The four of us should collaborate on something.
Yeah, the real time thing is kind of scary.
I'm down.
I haven't been able to I haven't been able to get the things that I've done with other people that like there's too much lag. Like you couldn't like sing together and harmonize or whatever. But I do know a couple of people who have done the thing where like each person in the band plays to a click track and then you put it into Final Cut and like sync it up or whatever. But I don't you'd have to have like I don't know, like Google Fiber like for every single person in the band and for everyone watching it, you know, in order to do it in real time. I'm nervous about playing shows in front of real people. To be honest, like we've been talking to the people who are doing that Lemonade Park thing in Kansas City over by Voltaire, and it's just kind of like, okay, yeah.
It's very well done, dude. I did it.
Is it? You did?
It's so well thought out. I was very surprised because I was a little skeptical myself.
Okay, that's very reassuring. Because I'm just kind of like, I hate that this is what it's made me feel over the course of this, but I just kind of don't trust people right now. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I trust people that I know are, you know, taking things seriously, but like, there's a bunch of strangers there. I don't know how many, like, for all I know, they were at Sturgis the other weekend or what, you know, like,
yeah.
Or at that Lake of the Ozarks party. Or hell, they're up. I'm in Lawrence. They were up on KU at those frat parties that all got, you know, shut down. But
I think I also get concerned not just about like, okay, maybe we can make it safe for me to be on a stage, but like all of the people are coming into work and all of the audiences. Like I'm also very, very cautious. I don't want to be a part of anything that might be unintentionally putting people at risk. And you're right, Matt. I mean, there's a variety of responses to this situation right now by a variety of people. And it even going out into the front yard, I had to kind of think about it, not only privacy issues about maybe people knowing where I live with the cameras or, but also like, how are the neighbors going to react? But it was sort of like, hey, this is the lawn. Thou shalt not cross the edge of the lawn. If somebody wanted to, you know, gift a bottle of wine or something, we adapted, put a little basket at the edge. I think we're all going to have to figure out what works for us, and not every venue is going to be as thoughtful as Lemonade Park and following our intuition. But it is scary, and my concern also goes out to the incredible venues that have been so good, I'm sure, to all of us as musicians, but you know, also hoping that we're able as a community to keep supporting somehow online, not just artists, but these venues that have been such vital aspects of music communities, not just in Kansas City, but elsewhere.
Yeah,
totally.
How do you find that balance? You know, I think we're all asking that question and coming up with different answers.
Yeah.
Kind of make it up as you go along, I guess. I don't really know.
I do think that from what I've seen a little bit, so the neighborhood association where I live has been doing occasional lawn concerts where, you know, somebody will agree to be a host and the neighborhood association will throw a little bit of money at the band, and there's a tip jar and a sign with Venmo handles and whatnot. And those are well attended, relatively speaking, and like pretty responsible. I think people who really want to see live music in like, at least in our spots, like are conscious of just the need to be safe. So I just think it's like the challenge is managing it. And it's something like Lemonade Park, for example. Chris is my, you know, as a buddy. And this was like no bad blood or anything, but I was trying to get a full song from both the Black Creatures and Calvin Arsenia the next night. And I was at a spot where they're basically trying to keep, you know, all the ladies from rolling up and try to get all the footage of Calvin Arsenia, and then it's suddenly being a bunch of people crowded in front of the stage. That's like the ultimate thing they're trying to avoid. He was like, hey, bro, I don't know what you got to do, but you got to go. And like, even with that, and I totally get where he's coming from. So like, even with like him being willing to do that, I think says a lot about how they're managing things and how things of that nature are going to need to be managed if they're going to work while this stuff plays out. But like we'll see, I guess. I think on like the virtual collaboration thing, I do think this is kind of prime time to work with people, to work with the homies across the world or whatever. Because there's stuff like, and my thing, like the Nerdy People of Color Collective literally came from Mega Ran seeing us on YouTube or whatever over the course of a couple of years and putting us in one collective, and then we started mobbing conventions together. But we don't see one another a lot, so we're collaborating on the internet all the time anyway. So this isn't really necessarily new to me. I think it's just been cool to see people be more aggressive because they have more time. It's like I might as well just reach out and see if this person wants to drop a verse. David George did a really good job with that here, with that really gorgeous "When We All Come Together."
Oh yeah, that was at the beginning of the thing on the bridge. That I did. Yeah,
and that was really beautiful. So like I'm pretty confident that barring like just complete all out civil war or something, that we'll be able to.
Don't jinx it.
Not saying that that's impossible, but that we'll be able to, I think, kind of just move forward and do things just to create some beauty in the situation.
The record label that I'm on, this label Polyvinyl, they just released an album that was a compilation that they actually been kind of orchestrated really, I guess back in like April, where they took like, because there's some older bands like us, and there's a lot of younger bands on the label, and they basically would like kind of like randomize picking like 4 or 5 people from different bands and being like, who's interested in doing a collaboration thing. And so they paired me up with 4 other musicians who I'd never met. We've only talked online, and it was like, and they did that for like I think 10 songs of completely different sort of like, drawing your name out of a hat as far as who's going to be, in that band. And that record just came out. It's called Exquisite Corpse, which I guess is an old art term that I'm not familiar with.
I'm gonna write that down. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But some of it's turned out pretty cool, because I was just like, everybody's like, well, where do you start? And I'm like, I don't know. Who's the drummer? I was like, I'm the drummer. Like, all right, send me a beat and I'll write a melody over it, and then we'll just go from there. Like just because that's
awesome.
But it was a pretty cool thing, and I think some of the money's going to go to charity and stuff like that. And
I believe Heartland Song Network's been doing that.
Oh, really?
Artists here, yeah, which I think is really awesome. And
right.
Rob Castillo did an album of that nature as well. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said somebody just said Heartland Song Network is inviting artists to collaborate.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm reading the chat.
You're reading the chat. We've done a bit of it as well. I mean, Carswell Hope, we recorded a couple of covers. We did a Peter Gabriel early on and a Radiohead, and we did that just recording separately with click tracks. So I mean, I think if everyone has a recording setup, I'd encourage people to do that, because it's surprisingly it's achievable, and you can actually pull things off. We were definitely worried that things wouldn't have a feel, it just wouldn't feel right. Even if we play live to a click, we always try and throw down a few bass and drums together, and so assembling it, I'd encourage people to give that a shot. I did want to mention as well, next week on our panel, before we're not ready to leave just yet, but next week we have Steve Tuapana, who's going to be on with Chris Aguirre and a few others, and we're going to be talking about Lemonade Park more. And there are comments here that people are definitely feeling good about Lemonade Park.
Good.
And I think that
I actually called Steve the other day, and I was just like, please tell me this is safe.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to go into a situation that's just kind of like, I don't want it to be like, well, this is what's legal. It's like, well,
Right.
No, I want it to be more than that. I want it to be like everybody's actually like taken care of,
Yeah, I think that's hugely important, and that's going to the way out of this thing. And sorry, and a couple of more questions. Just more affirming. Patrick has watched each of you live stream, enjoys the energy and warmth. And Heartland Song Network got a mention as well, and Diana's here tuning in. Just keeping an eye on comments. Well, we're coming to the end of our time. I wanted to offer you guys a chance to, if you have any additional thoughts. one thing I was curious, you know, we mentioned the question about somebody starting out, you know, like, and we can ask questions about the future. I don't, that's always a hard thing to ask about. And, you know, there are so many things moving. I think what we're going to talk about next week is really about the more geared towards the future and how venues can survive, and interesting things that venues and other organizations are trying. But, you know, like, if you knew something, if you could tell your former selves from 5 or 6 months ago, you know, at the start of this, you know, or to somebody starting out, like, what would your advice be? Or, you know, and it is only 5 or 6 months ago, but it might as well have been a lifetime ago. So I feel like there's definitely things I could have shared. But, or if you have any closing thoughts along those lines, Matt,
I mean,
go.
in regards to like the now times as opposed to previously, any advice I would give to someone who's just starting out is it's kind of not that much different, other than that you can't really play a lot of live concerts, but you still, I think, especially for like the younger generations of songwriters and bands or whatever, a lot of where they're getting their start is online anyway, and just kind of like releasing things and, you know, making creative content and being yourself and finding your people and all of that kind of stuff, which we, you know, when I started touring, you literally could only do that by going to play a coffee shop in Detroit for 10 people and then going back there 4 months later or whatever. But now you can really like kind of reach more people digitally than you certainly could back then. I think if I could tell myself something from a couple of months ago, it would be to go take care of your mental health and know that there will be darkness and that it's not, you know, because like what Kadesh was saying about kind of hitting a wall. You said in June, and I had it really bad in July. I'm just like, just kind of like, what's the fucking point? You know, like I'm just gonna go walk the dogs. I don't know what else to do. And I'm coming out of that now, and I'm feeling like, okay, you know, every tragedy has an opportunity, so let's try and find what that opportunity is.
Love it.
I would say that, so definitely piggyback on the mental health part. I was just full on, I'm going to be relentless. You know, part of that was like an angry response after losing so much stuff that like, and I thought there were things that could potentially like materially change my life that now are on hold. But I agree with being relentless, especially as a performing artist right now. If you're doing your own music, I think there's got to be a level of like situations and circumstances that you just don't accept, and that the only thing that you do accept is that you're going to keep creating for yourself, and to build whatever you know, dreams or goals that you had. But the other part of it is I think it's good to re-engage everything that initially inspired you. That's what kind of helped me start coming out of my situation. So it's why I started back on the artist way. So when I first started taking myself seriously as an artist, so I was finishing grad school. I knew I was going to get a corporate job. I knew I probably wasn't going to be in corporate America super long. A mentor recommended the artist way to me, and then a year later, a friend bought me a book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art. And I'm like piecemeal, like re-engaging both of those right now. And what started pulling me out was re-engaging morning pages. So I kind of journal a lot anyway, but actually jumping back into trying to make a consistent habit of just free writing every morning to declutter my brain and just get all of my anger and resentment and fear out visually. It really like helps me function a lot. So I would tell myself to like make sure that I did that consistently from the jump. I probably would have avoided the wall.
Interesting. Wow, that's great.
Yeah, I've heard other people talk about that, sort of like when you first wake up, start journaling or start writing. I've never been able to do it.
Now,
I need to teach this old dog that new trick.
yeah, I'm usually busy pouring Cheerios and trying to put on teeny tiny socks and that kind of thing.
Y'all have kids. I don't even.
Yeah, I just shove it all on them, so that's okay. Just mess them up. Julia, your Songs of September project sounds awesome. So you're 9 days in. Um, any other thoughts? Any final thoughts, or looking back or looking forward?
I
I'm going
just
to be watching that. I wanted to plug it. That's all I wanted to do because
thank
it's
you so
super
much. I
cool
I
project.
really appreciate anybody who's watching. Feedback is very welcome. Song suggestions are very welcome. I'm still not sure what song I'm learning for tomorrow. But I think we're just at such an intense time in all of our history, and the fact that the entire globe is going through such a transformation and nothing is normal for anybody. I feel like this is a moment in time when we all, if we can, in whatever way we can, just like raise our vibrations and really think about what we're all doing here, where we'd like our world to go, where we'd like our country to go, and experiment, because we know that we're all dealing with limitations that we probably have never faced before, or some aspect of that. And if I think we could possibly use that to inspire and stimulate new projects, because of the big question mark we're all facing, and maybe just learning to be a bit kinder to ourselves and kinder to each other, and using these platforms that I know that at times I have been very negative about social media, because it's just not a dynamic that has been easy for me to engage with. It's sort of counterintuitive to my own proclivities and my own shyness and my sort of social awkwardness at times. But you being like, well, fuck it, like we're in it. This is the way to be together. And I've appreciated what I've been forcing myself to do, and what the situation has sort of, what doors it's kind of wrenched open and windows it's opened up. Our neighbors have never been closer. And so, you know, can I find what's amazing about this? Can I find those silver linings and really expand in that space? And like Songs of September, I'm really proud of what we're doing. Whether it, you know, I know one person who's registered to vote. They probably would have already, I don't know, but that made me feel something, you know. And I've realized that I've actually sort of switched my own perception of myself as an artist, where from now on I'm really only wanting to focus on creating community. Whatever I'm creating, can I relate it to something that hopefully I'm already relating to the art? Otherwise, why would I be making it? But is there a way I can contextualize it so that it can have more depth and feed my soul on another level? And I think the now times have facilitated that for me. And it's, I feel a different kind of sense of purpose. And I've realized that's really important to me. And I don't know if I would have taken the time to find that if things hadn't gotten a bit stiller lately. And to whoever is starting off in music, just play tons, write tons. Don't edit yourself too early. Don't judge yourself too earlier. The freakier you are, fantastic. The most exquisite parts of you are probably those things that are freakiest. So dive in and do a whole bunch of it.
Love it. That's awesome. I think that's really amazing, because it's a response. It's a response to these times that's pretty unique. So thank you for doing all that, and thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I mean, those connections. This topic was, we covered a lot of things, but staying connected to audiences, and if that's such an awesome way to do that. Not everyone has to do that, right? I mean, just to your point about your uniqueness, and especially if you're starting out, but as a reaction, which I think everybody is doing, and as artists and as individuals, I just love that thought. So thank you for that. I would say, just as you were speaking there, I feel we touched on this a little bit, and this is the segue to next week, where we're expanding the conversation. The topic, we give it a name: keeping the lights on. We're going to be talking to some venue owners, managers, people who work with a lot of different stakeholders, for lack of a better term, people who also, their livelihoods depend on music, live performances specifically, but really the wider industry. So next week, that's what we're talking about. That's MixMaster, the third session, which is next Wednesday, September 16th, 4 to 5:30 p.m. Central. Don't forget the Crossroads Music Festival this Saturday night, 4 to 10 p.m. Julia, what time are you performing at?
I am performing at 5 o'clock,
Oh yeah.
7 o'clock? 7 o'clock Central. 5 o'clock Pacific.
Fantastic. So, and that's going to be a whole other night of entertainment. We weren't going to answer all the questions about live streaming and about the technical side of it, but I think, any musician who sees people doing it, and you will be able to do it on this Saturday night for the Crossroads Music Festival happening virtually. You can also donate at kkfi.org/donate to help KKFI Community Radio keep programs like the Crossroads Music Festival and this conversation keep these things happening. I'm going to play, I also wanted to shout out Midwest Music Foundation. They are offering grants for artists who have lost income and musicians, performers who've lost income due to the pandemic. And they also have a healthcare fund, which is an incredible resource for artists. So to help cover healthcare costs, which is probably more of a stressful thing now than ever as well. So I'm going to kind of play that out. We have Rhonda from Midwest Music Foundation. I'm going to play a video, but before I do that, thank you so much. Thanks, Matt, Kadesh, Julia. It's been a great conversation. I hope that we can have more. And thank you again for giving your time and staying busy and being inspiring. All of the comments, both on Facebook and on our Zoom, have echoed that as well. People are very thankful to hear and hope that we all stay safe and healthy and keep music alive, albeit virtually. So thank you so much. And Patrick is bowing down to us all as we speak. Thanks, Patrick.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. My pleasure, and thanks to KKFI. And yeah, I'm gonna try and switcheroo here and play a video. We're all so good at this stuff, clearly. Even just after this 90-minute conversation, I'm gonna be so smooth in playing this video. Thank you, folks. Thanks for your time and your insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
So nice to meet you, Kadesh and Matt.
Nice to meet you too, both of you.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Rhonda Lyons, Executive Director of the Midwest Music Foundation. We are a Kansas City-based nonprofit whose mission is to support our area musicians. These have been incredibly difficult times for our music community, as it has for so many others. The music industry has been hit particularly hard by the COVID-19 pandemic, with many musicians and music industry workers out of work for several months. One way we are here to offer support is through our COVID Relief Fund. These are small grants intended to help with immediate assistance. We have also guided musicians and music industry workers to other resources through our website, midwestmusicfoundation.org. If you are a musician in need, you can go to our website and fill out a simple application. In addition to our COVID Relief Fund, we also have Abby's Fund for Musicians Healthcare. These are grants intended to help musicians with medical urgent needs. Both funds are available through our website, midwestmusicfoundation.org. So far, we have given out $87,000 in assistance through our COVID Relief Fund and over $230,000 through Abby's Fund. If you are in need, please apply. If you can help, please donate at midwestmusicfoundation.org. Thank you.